Hi, it's Tracy. Hello. And if we've not met before, welcome to my home here in Sussex, England. In this episode, I'm going to show you from start to finish how I took an ugly old outbuilding and turned it into a magazine-worthy guest cottage. And I didn't spend a lot of money doing it. I thrifted it. We bought this property back in 2016 and believe me when I say it looked very different at the time. A lot of people say to me, gosh, you're so lucky to live there. Well, yes, we are, but we've created our own luck. It's taken a huge amount of effort. A lot of blood, sweat and tears have been shed in order to create what we've got now. So let Bertie and I show you what we did with the outbuilding. So this is what it looked like when we first came to view the property. It was 500 square foot with 2 bedrooms, a bathroom and a kitchen living space. This was the house. This is how it used to look. It was covered in cream pebble dash. It had faux beams, modern leaded light windows, small, dark, pokey little rooms, but it was in a beautiful location. Set up a little track so there's no passing traffic, a truly peaceful spot. In 2018, the works began on the main house, and that took 19 months in total to complete. So we were left with this very ugly building. We explored lots of different options of what to do with it. I got estate agents round to give me a guide on just how much money I should invest into it. Should I refurb it? Should I pull it down? What should its purpose be? You know, these are all useful questions to be posing, particularly if it's not your forever home and you are going to have to make a return on this at some point in time. So just something to bear in mind if you're about to do any kind of build like this. I played around with ideas, I got permission to pitch the roof, and then I decided that I would do the rip out myself because all the time I'm looking at ways of driving the costs down. So when I was ripping out the old kitchen, I'm thinking, oh, am I going to find some treasure? Well, I found a chicken and mushroom pie in a tin that had been dated 2009. More on that pie later. I thoroughly enjoyed doing the rip out. Well, you know, if you give a menopausal woman a sledgehammer and a crowbar, what do you expect? It's great therapy. Although when my electrician Greg came on site to help me with the electrics, I may have got a little bit carried away. The original plan had been just to chase some new wiring in. And then I said, well, why don't we bring the ceiling down? And I'm so glad I did because we found these amazing beams. Once I de-nailed them and sorted them out, I decided to spray them in some leftover, just bare plaster paint. The reason I used that was A, because I had it and I didn't want it to go to waste, and I wasn't going to be doing any plastering in the cottage, so it would have gone to waste. And also because I wanted the tannins in the wood to show through, so it wasn't just a pure block painted white roof. It would have lots of interest and character in it. Spraying it at this stage as well meant that I didn't have to worry about overspill, overspray, because the building work hadn't started inside. Now, it was around this time that the furry supervisor came into our lives. If you're new here, this is Bertie. I was active on Instagram at the time, so of course he went straight into the sink for the requisite sinky and straight out onto the golf course to be golf trained. Flooring. I was looking for something different, something that would make a statement, and I came across these 100-year-old French cheese boards. The bare plaster paint came out again. Yes, I did have quite a bit left over. And once I'd prepped the boards, I then gave it a wash over with the paint, sanded them all back, and got them to the effect that I really wanted, and then sealed them with this amazing product. I'll link it below. I decided to build a veranda, so I needed something to make the floor out of. I found these scaffold boards at pretty much the length that I needed, because all the time I'm thinking I don't want to waste materials. So I debanded them, sanded them, stacked those up, ready for when they were needed. I started buying in more supplies whenever I could find deals. So I found the tiles that I wanted to use in the shower area. I found a vintage bathtub that was going to go out onto the veranda. Yes, I was a bit of an Insta-knob, so I couldn't resist having a pose. So there were lots of things that I ordered well in advance. I got the doors and windows in, I painted those up, all the sanitary ware. My local sawmill cut me a nice slab of oak so I could start drying it and turning it, ready to hang it as a sliding door. I trawled the auctions. I thought this would make a good window seat, a wardrobe for the bedroom, a dresser and brass jam pan for a bathroom sink, a porch swing for the veranda, and some giant lanterns. I changed the colour of the porch swing with Osmo White Oil Stain and stripped the gubbins out of the lanterns ready for rewiring, took them down to my shop blasters and they stripped them back to their beautiful copper finish. So by the time my builders, lovely father and son team, Glenn and Ben, arrived on site, all the key design items had either been ordered or bought and flipped. The running order was very much determined by the weather and the cutting times at the local sawmill where all the timber was coming from. Bertie adored Glenn and Ben and was in daily supervisory mode. Once the veranda floor was down and all the uprights were in, we could turn our attention to the roof. So I basically designed a hat. I didn't want a flat roof. I wanted a pitched roof, but I didn't want to take that flat roof off. The building was watertight and to take it all off would actually be quite expensive. So all the time I've got my eye on how can I make cost savings, the cost benefit analysis, maximum impact, minimum cost, but without compromising on quality and design. So by designing it in the way that I did, it gave me 3 opportunities. 1, the visual pitch. 2, it gave me that oversail to create the veranda. And 3, a shorter oversail on the other side of the building so I could have a covered outdoor kitchen. The void created on top of the building gave me the opportunity to run all the plumbing and electrics up there and spread out all the insulation that I'd taken from the rip out. When it came to cladding the outside of the building, we did it in stages. The sawmill is only a few minutes away. They would cut in batches. We would go and collect, which meant that we didn't have loads of materials sat around on site with the potential of being damaged by the weather. Now, when it came to the roof, I needed to go for something quite lightweight, so I actually went for a corrugated sheeting, which was much cheaper than tile and also quite in keeping with the rural area, the farm buildings that we have around us. So once all the external timber was on, it was back over to me for the finishing work. Now, I did a collaboration with Osmo. I like the company. I think their products are top quality. So I went with their base coat to protect the wood and then the country colour in a white finish. The furry supervisor got in on the act as well, now growing up into a handsome dude, but actually off camera, he is as mad as a box of frogs. Oh, to find such joy in a cardboard tube. Anyway, back to me. I had to get on with all this finishing work. It took me 2 weeks in total to go all the way around the building. Yeah, the boy is back again. This is what happens when you haven't put your guttering up and it rains. Ah, the simple pleasures in life. I think we all need to be a little bit more Bertie. So now it's time to get started on the inside. I clad the whole of the inside in big MDF sheets. This is moisture resistant board and it's already got the T&G, the tongue and groove routed through it. The beauty with these sheets is they go on really quickly. They can go on straight over the existing plasterboard and just be screwed into the existing stud work. To cut down on kitchen cabinetry costs, I built 3 floor to ceiling cupboards that would do as pantry, larder and for the hot water cylinder. And then back over to me and it's all the painting. I sprayed all the boarding with a primer, then an undercoat and then finished off with emulsion. The only thing that I need to do any protection on was the windows because the flooring hadn't gone down. But then it was time for the flooring to come in. So we made sure there was lots of insulation underneath those cheese boards. I will describe what cheese boards are later. Once the floor was down, I could add the skirts, and I used leftover material from the main house build. The kitchen, I designed the layout myself and then just ordered the units online. And we were super careful when we were cutting the cheese boards, so we made sure that we had enough to do the countertops, to do the upstands and all the kickboards as well. Plus the odd offcut that's left, we're using as chopping boards. To create the kitchen island, I used some of the timber that we'd taken off the building originally. When you flip it over, it's just blonde wood. So I use white wax to colour it up to give it that effect. So it's a really good way of reusing, recycling, and I've got loads of this left over for future projects. It's always a happy day when Greg, my electrician, turns up on site. We do have a laugh together, and second fix electrics is always fun, especially when it's lighting. The lighting is all incredibly low priced. It's been found at auction, it's been found in charity shops, budget online stores, and then we've tweaked and modified it, but only ever with a qualified electrician. And remember the big oak slab? That was hung as a sliding door between the living area and the bedroom. I made a fireplace for the sitting area so it had a focal point out of some old rotting fencing posts that had recently been replaced, and then some slate that I found in the garden. The slate cleaned up beautifully by sanding it, and then to finish the mantle I lightened it with the white oil stain and then sealed that with the top oil, a clear matte. To brighten up the slate, I use baby oil. Just wipe it over, let it dry, and it gives a beautiful shine. At auction for £32, I picked up a huge quantity of shelving, and so we used it to create a freestanding unit and then ripped down the other pieces in order to create the shelving in the 3 big storage cupboards. Now, to hide the glass on the doors that I'd recycled, I actually just staple gunned some fabric to some battens and then attached those top and bottom to the doors so you can't see into the cupboards. And as for the pie, I've actually hidden it in one of the walls, so it could be an antique by the time it's discovered again. In the bathroom, I carried the MDF through. It's moisture resistant and it's painted in a way that will protect it. I ran the big planks around the shower area, and I also used the cheese boards on the floor. The brass pan I had cut by a special fabricator in order to create a sink. And the Victorian style shower came from one of the online plumbing suppliers. The toilet was a bargain off eBay. In the bedroom, I asked Ben to make a straight shelf into a corner shelf. I'd had these for some years and I thought they'd be ideal to go in either side as there wasn't that much room either side of the bed. When it came to the outdoor kitchen, we thought it would be great fun to see if we could build the whole thing with just what we had lying around, so we weren't allowed to go out and buy a single screw for it. The barbecue I already had, and it was originally on a stand, so we just discarded that. And then to make the actual doors, we used pallets that the cladding for the main house had come on, and they were so heavy duty I didn't get rid of them, and they've worked perfectly. Even the handles had come off an old chest of drawers I'd been renovating for the house. We kept the storage really simple and practical. The stainless steel countertop I actually found behind a shed when we moved in, and the splashback is a surplus sheet of corrugated that the suppliers sent by mistake. Andy the plumber was the 4th trade that we used. We only used 4 in total, and again, young and open to new ideas, so we designed the bath taps together. We got the porch swing up, and then it was time, remember those lanterns, for Greg to come back and hang those for me. So we used one on each side of the building, but when it came around to the outdoor kitchen area, we actually set it on the top like a lamp and plugged it in. A few feet from the cottage, there was a very small, and I mean really small, dirty old pond, which I decided I would turn into a fire pit. Now, normally I wouldn't advocate taking a pond out of the garden, but we have a whole boundary of stream, and so we have also lots of neighbours with big ponds. So I felt okay about turning this into a fire pit, and I've got to say it's been such a welcome addition. We've really enjoyed using it. Just behind the fire pit area, there is some staging that was left by the previous owners. It looked as though they were about to build maybe like a Wendy house, little summer house, that type of thing. So I decided rather than just ripping it all out, and I didn't need to build it, I'd actually pull it apart and then close up the gaps with breeze blocks, take some of the structure, pull that apart and sand those posts down and attach them at the very back of the area and turn it into a cut flower bed. I didn't just want to leave it as the blonde wood, so I had some of the Osmo country colour left over, so I painted that in white, ordered all my soil, and after a whole afternoon of barrowing this up the driveway, I got it all in, and in the first season I just put some bulbs in ready for the spring. So it was lovely to be able to go out and feel guilt-free cutting flowers for the house. So now the building work is done, it's time to get styling. The oak shelving here was already in the main house when we first moved in. So when we did the rip out there, I set that aside. After all, I knew I was going to be able to use planks of oak somewhere. To make the brackets, Ben just took one of the boards and cut it down to size. He's such an ingenious guy. I didn't buy any taps at all for this build. I worked with Andy and his compression tool in order to make our own out of the copper pipes. To make the countertop around the egg, we actually just cut up old paving slabs. I save money on surface water drainage by just using the down pipes into big whiskey barrels to use as water butts, and I did those either side of the building. Now let's go inside and do the styling in there. The rest of the oak shelving was used in the kitchen area, and because I wanted to put in a lot of weight on the shelves, because I do sometimes like to use really heavy things, I got Ben to attach these corbels into the uprights, into the stud work, so it just gives that extra strength to the shelf, so I can laden to my heart's content. The hanging light fittings here were just £8 each, which I picked up off eBay, and I've just hung them in a different way. They're actually pendant lights, so normally one would hang them from the ceiling, but I've put them into the wall and then a hook into the beam and just looped the flex around. cheese boards. So for those of you that are wondering, what on earth is she talking about? They're actually pretty much, as the name suggests, they're boards for maturing cheese on. So they would go down into caves and they'd be on racks, and the cheeses would sit there until they were mature. And these are over 100 years old, so technically antique. Remember, if it's under 100 years, then it's collectible or vintage, and over 100 years, then it's officially antique. I just want to interrupt the decorating to give a very special thank you to a lovely lady in Germany called Greta. She really kindly sent me a copy of this magazine. Now in here we've got an 8-page spread of the cottage. It's a German publication and it was a bit difficult for me to get hold of. You know, gone are the days when magazines would send you a free copy when your house appears in it. It doesn't happen anymore. So Greta very kindly popped one in the post. So thank you, darling. I really appreciate it. Now, back to the decorating. In lots of my other videos, I've talked about the price that I've paid for everything and where I've got them from. You'd be here a very long time if I was doing that on this video because there are so many items here. So if there's anything that you particularly want to know the source of, the price of, then please just pop the question into the comments and I'll do my very best to answer. The black piece of furniture that you saw earlier in the video actually turned out to be a really great window seat, and all those lion head drawer pulls actually do open drawers, so it's great storage as well. The wood burner stove is actually electric, and that was found on eBay for just £100. When I looked up the make of it, I found that actually they were still retailing at over £1,000. It is a dead weight, it is cast iron. Let's move through to the bedroom now. Now in here, the reason why I got Ben to make those shelves and why there isn't that much room either side of the bed was I couldn't resist this bed. £75. It's a feather and black, and I know for a fact these sell for just under £2,000. So when I saw that in a charity shop, I thought, well, blow that. I don't care if I don't have side tables. We'll figure it. Into the bathroom now, and just because a room is small doesn't mean to say you can't add character to it. This is not a big room, but it's certainly got individuality. Out onto the veranda now and to my French bateau. This one I think actually is over 100 years old, so therefore it is antique, and I particularly love the lid on it because it's really practical. It keeps all the detritus out. And the porch swing is another firm favourite. Now my American friends will probably think, yeah, well, whatever, we've got loads of them. They're actually quite unusual in the UK, and it was really hard to get hold of one. In the end, I found it on Wayfair. I've added a big £50 auction find dresser in the corner there, and I've actually finished it in the Osmo country colour in the white. Because the wood is very different, it's taken it in different ways, and I just love the effect it's created. The sofa again was from a charity shop, £40, and the rug came from Wayfair. It's not a place I have shopped before, and in fact I've only ever bought 2 items from Wayfair, and you've just seen them both. All the mirrors that you've been seeing are either charity shop or auction finds, and they've all been finished in Annie Sloan Old White Chalk Paint and then distressed. The lid from this enamel bread bin was actually used to create the light fitting in the bedroom. I must just explain, if you're new here, you'll have heard me refer to this as an outbuilding, an annex. When it was all done, we decided we couldn't just call it that. It needed something a little bit more glamorous. So we came up with the term the cottage. So when you hear me talk about the cottage, it's this building. That's what I mean. In the next episode, I'm going to be doing another porch makeover because we've got two porches here. We've got this one and then we've got the porch on the main house. If you've not seen the main house one, I'll link the video below and I'll link it at the end so you can watch that one. But next episode, we're going to be back out here and I'm going to redo this completely. So at the moment it is stripped bare and I am scrubbing it and cleaning it, getting ready to restyle it with you. So how much did it all cost, I hear you asking? Well, it cost 40,000. So normally the split is probably 60% materials, 40% labour. But because I drove down the price so much on all of the supplies and all of the styling, it was actually the other way around. So 60% of my costs were on labour and 40% were on materials. And to the overall value on the property, well, I spent 40,000, but I've put another 200,000 onto the value by doing what we've done here. So after all of that hard work, it's time for a nice hot soak in a bubble bath as I watch the sun go down. Please do join me here next time. We'll be back out on this veranda to completely restyle it. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.